Today, we're going to dive into the incredible story of a man who changed the world with pretty much nothing but his ideas and his own courage. His name was Mahatma Gandhi.
So, think about this for a second. How can just one person actually change the world without using a single weapon? It sounds kind of impossible, right? Well, that question is really at the heart of Gandhi's entire life. He gave us an answer, and believe me, it's a powerful one. Let's see how he did it.
You might think that someone who changes the world has to be born extraordinary. But that wasn't Mohandas Gandhi. He started out as a pretty ordinary, even shy boy, and he definitely wasn't a star student.
If you look at his early years, you can see the foundation being built piece by piece. He was born in India back in 1869, and his family taught him from a very young age about nonviolence and being honest. Later, he moved all the way to London to become a lawyer. Talk about a major culture shock. But when he came back to India, he actually had a really hard time finding work. It was a slow, pretty uncertain start for him.
Then, a one-year job contract as a lawyer took him to South Africa. He probably thought it was just a temporary job. He had absolutely no idea that this one trip was about to change the entire course of his life and history forever.
So, it's 1893, and he arrives in South Africa ready to do his job. He's a professional, a lawyer, just trying to get to a city called Pretoria for a case.
He does what anyone else would do. He buys himself a first-class ticket and takes his seat in the train car. Everything is completely normal.
And then, everything changes. A white passenger complains about him being there. Even though he has a perfectly valid ticket, the train officials order him to move to a third-class car, simply because he isn't white.
Gandhi refuses. He knows it's wrong, it's unjust. And for standing his ground, he is physically thrown off the train onto a cold, dark station platform. Now, here's the amazing part. That moment of humiliation didn't break him. It lit a fire inside him. It became the turning point where he decided he was going to dedicate his life to fighting this kind of injustice.
But how do you fight an unfair system without becoming violent yourself? In response to that question, Gandhi invented a totally new way to resist, a method that was all about moral strength, not physical force.
He called it satyagraha. It's a word from the ancient language of Sanskrit, and it literally means truth force or soul force. The core idea is simple, but it's also revolutionary. You can defeat hate with love and lies with truth. It's about being so strong in your beliefs that you can actually change the heart of your opponent. And that's a much deeper, more permanent victory than just winning a fight.
So this is how it works. It's a clear, disciplined strategy. First, you identify an unfair law. Second, you protest it peacefully, no violence. Then, and this is the really hard part, you willingly accept the punishment, getting arrested, getting treated badly, all without fighting back. The goal isn't to crush your enemy, it's to make them see the injustice of what they're doing.
So after spending 21 years in South Africa developing these ideas, Gandhi returned to India in 1915. He was ready to use satyagraha on the biggest stage yet, to fight for his country's independence from British rule.
One of his first major campaigns was all about economics. He saw that India was being forced to buy expensive cloth from British factories, which kept the country poor and dependent. His solution? He urged everyone to spin and weave their own cloth, called khadi. This simple act became a powerful symbol of self-reliance and national pride.
This brings us to one of the most famous acts of protest in all of history, the Salt March. You see, the British controlled all the salt in India and put a heavy tax on it. And salt was something even the poorest people needed just to survive. Gandhi decided he was going to challenge this law head-on.
And he did it in the most dramatic way possible. He led a march to the sea that was 240 miles long. It took 24 days. He started with just a small group, but by the time he reached the coast, thousands of people had joined him. And there, he simply bent down and picked up a piece of natural salt, openly breaking British law in front of the whole world.
And this really became his signature style, from helping poor farmers in 1917 to that famous Salt March in 1930 to the huge Quit India movement in 1942. That last one was a massive, nationwide campaign demanding that the British leave immediately. Each time, he used peaceful protests to challenge the system, and it inspired millions, showing the world that Britain's control over India was crumbling.
And it worked. After decades of struggle, on August 15, 1947, India finally achieved its independence from Great Britain.
But this victory came with a terrible, terrible price. The country was divided into two nations, India and Pakistan.
This led to horrific violence between Hindus and Muslims as millions of people were forced from their homes. For Gandhi, this was just a profound tragedy. On the actual day of independence, he wasn't celebrating. He was fasting and praying for peace.
Though he was tragically killed just a few months after independence, Gandhi's story didn't end there. His ideas went on to inspire people all over the globe.
The Indian people had started calling him Mahatma, which means great soul. In 1948, he was assassinated by a man who hated his message of religious tolerance. It was a brutal end for a man of peace.
But his legacy is just undeniable. His philosophy of nonviolent resistance directly inspired leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. in the American Civil Rights Movement and Nelson Mandela in his fight against apartheid in South Africa. His methods literally became a blueprint for how to create change in the world. So, the most important point is this. Gandhi proved that true power doesn't come from weapons or money. It comes from courage, conviction, and the force of a just idea.
And that leaves us with a final thought. Gandhi's work isn't just something in a history book. It's a challenge to all of us. If you look at the world today, what kind of injustice could be fought with his ideas? Where could we still use the power of peace?